Hi, good evening everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
अब let me check. I think वो YouTube पे live हुआ है
हाँ,
तभी
वो उसी वजह से आया होगा इको का. Yes, yes, yes.
मैं इधर इसको म्यूट कर देती हूँ.
Shweta ma'am, good afternoon.
Very good afternoon, sir.
How are you, ma'am?
I am good, sir. Delighted to join you on this platform. Hello, madam.
Hello ma'am, how are you?
Good, ma'am. Pleasure interacting with you.
Same here ma'am.
Ma'am, so if you want to just check ma'am screen sharing and anything you can check ma'am.
Give me a second, sir.
We'll wait till 4:05 ma'am. We'll start
Okay.
the session by 4:05 ma'am.
So I hope the screen is projected well, sir.
Yes, 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 yes.
Right. So we are sorted that way.
Okay, done. Ma'am, so you can wait for 5.
Sure, sir.
But sir, I'm making you the co-host, and plus, if you want, I can also make Karan sir as a
Yeah,
co-host.
Karan also you can make a co-host.
Okay. So we are live on YouTube as well. I have to record this meeting.
So you can start entering participants if they are there. अच्छा अभी तो कोई नहीं है, वो end कर दिया था ना. Yes. You are on mute.
You entered through the same link, right?
Yes, yes, I entered through the same. Yes.
Good evening, students. We'll wait for next 5 minutes. Then we are good to start after that. Yes, Shweta ma'am, we are good to start now.
Right, madam.
Very good evening to each one of you students. Thank you so much for waiting. So my name is Dimpy and I'm a team leader and a counselor at Hitbullseye. Our team helps every student across India for their applications and admission till they land to their dream B school. Today we have Dr. Shweta, ma'am. So she is going to guide you and give you the path related to the professional and your personal life, and she is also going to guide you about your checklist, what to do and what not to do. Okay, ma'am is a DN at IBS Jaipur, and she is an educationalist, trainer, and academic administrator with over 18 plus years of experience. She is an IIM Calcutta alumnus with PhD in management. She is an internationally certified trainer, a life member with Indian Society of Training and Development and All India Management Association. She is profoundly contributing to academia and industries in diverse capacity. It's a pleasure to have you on board, ma'am. Please, I present the stage to you now.
Thank you so much. No, the texture of my skin doesn't allow to blush and get pink.
No, ma'am.
Otherwise, these are very kind introductions. So very happy evening to all the young and aspiring, I would say, prodigies. And I know in the second half of the day, generally, we do not have a sprinkler system to test we are agile, alive, or awake. But I just hope everybody here is awake. And over the next 1.5 hour that we are interacting, I would just try to take you through certain things that generally out of my experience, I've observed that, the people of your age group aspiring to take up those careers of your choice, or maybe eyeing to make that kind of life where you can say, yes, there is a fulfillment, there is a contentment, there is a sense of gratification with your career, with your life. So there are certain things I trust that even if I don't talk about the don'ts, I would certainly like to talk about the do's. Because again, don'ts is something very subjective. Something which really doesn't work for me may do wonders for you. So often I avoid talking about don'ts unless that I'm pretty sure that this is something that's a big no. But yes, there are certain do's that I would certainly like to share with you. I would recommend that you may try your hands on these, lay your hands on these, and maybe these bring out some good results for you. Or maybe sometime in your life you feel that maybe this was worthy, it was worthwhile, it was worth trying, and it was worth implementing in life. So no rocket science, nothing new. Most of these things you must have heard of. It's just that, as I said, draw your checklist. So kind of revisiting, recapitulating those essentials that at this point of time are imperative when you look at how do you create or how do you draw a trajectory towards fulfilling life and career. So I am not a person who would talk much on psychology or maybe things related to, I'm not a life coach, but I'm definitely someone who's been day in and day out interacting with students of your age group. So all that what I draw is out of my observations, my interactions, my, I would say, encounters with students. How do I find them struggling to, kind of identify what is right? I would rather call it those right kind of critical faculty to assess, I mean, distinguish between right and wrong, good or bad, to do or not to do. I've often seen students struggling with their own aspirations, contradicting with their ethics, at times dilemmas, at times, that cognitive dissonance. Several things that I find that students struggle with. So allow me to share some slides with you. I mean, these are not something that I would say that there's a lot of work that I've done and a lot of that I've collated on my slides. Just a few of these where we are going to touch upon certain important dimensions. And you may pick at your discretion or at your choice. So the topic sounds like, yes, there is something huge coming our way, personal and professional effectiveness, drawing our checklist. But we'll try to simplify it. And meanwhile, no doctor has prescribed that you cannot put questions, or maybe we cannot interact. Please feel free to put your questions, to seek clarifications, and definitely to contest as well if you feel that there is something, there is a bone of contention, or you feel that you do not find this worth endorsing. So I would love to have that kind of discussion also, where we may not be on the same page, but definitely that is something in our interest to discuss. So before I start, I thought I could kind of just explore some fundamentals. Now, this is something many of us might have seen during our school days, or maybe in your graduation program. Quite a few institutions I know have been actively working on a lot of self-assessment for their students. I always say, when you plan something for yourself, the first thing that you should do is a self-assessment. Where am I? What are my levels of understanding, my levels of expertise, my level of maturity, my level of ability? We may not be able to see. It is just like dividing a rectangle into equal halves. If I ask you how many possible ways you can do it, many of you would say 4, 3, depending, those vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. And somebody might even say there are infinite ways of doing so. Reason, you may divide a rectangle in multiple ways, depending on where do you start from. At any point on the 4 edges, you can start, and you can take any kind of trajectory, a straight line, a wavy line, or maybe a zigzag line. So it all depends on where do you start and what kind of route do you take. So similarly, I always ask the students, or I insist them, or I urge them, that try and take a self-assessment, so that knowing where you are and what route would suit you best, you can plan your journey. There cannot be a rule book. It cannot be same for everyone. But definitely you need to understand where am I starting from and what route which I need to take. For that reason, I advocate a lot of self-assessments, including this one, multiple intelligences. Dimpy ma'am, I just wanted to confirm if the students can respond in the chat box at this moment.
Yes, they can.
Okay, so wonderful. The first thing I would request is just write a hello, hi, good afternoon, happy afternoon, yes, no in the chat box. At least I can be sure that we are together. Just for that feeling of delight. Thank you. The responses have started pouring in. So very quickly, you can also give me a response on, are you familiar with this concept of multiple intelligences? This was proposed by an expert, Howard Gardner, although it has drawn a lot of critical analysis. There has been a lot of contentions on it, but yes, okay. So Ashutosh, I take your yes as you're familiar with this concept, right? Okay. Khushbu also writes yes. Okay, for Kritika, it is new. Some more responses, like if it is something that you have come across or this is new for you. Accordingly, I would like to discuss on this. Okay. So even if there is a single no, we assume that it is new for us, right? We would try to maintain that parity. So, okay, thank you for those responses. Now, what did Howard Gardner say? There was this very seminal piece of work, Frames of Mind. That was the book he wrote in the 90s. And in that book, he talked about multiple intelligences. The focus was that people would have different levels of intelligences when we talk about different domains. Somebody may be very good with their numerical ability or good with logic or mathematics. You may even find people who are extraordinarily good with language or linguistic abilities, maybe finding the right kind of words to express yourself, or for certain people, it is way more convenient. They are very effective with expressing themselves because of their proficiency or maybe comfort with language. Some people would be exceptionally good with their bodily or kinesthetic intelligence. These are people who may make careers like athletes, sports persons, even dancers. So every individual would have some or the other proportion or quotient of each of these intelligences. It may vary from person to person. If I do it on myself, I've often found that I'm high on linguistic and logical intelligence. So that at least gives me a kind of confidence. Okay, I know what I'm good at and I can capitalize on my strength. So I would urge each one of you, explore about this. You'll find a lot of content online. Take up an online test for assessing your multiple intelligences. This would give you a clear picture, the comparative, or maybe I can say proportionate levels of different intelligences. Although when Howard Gardner's proposed it in the first stage, it was 8 intelligences. Eventually, a couple of them were added to it, including existential intelligence, which I would not like to discuss much. I would focus on these. Reason, these intelligences would help you assess what are your inherent abilities, where you carry an aptitude to be trained to become very proficient on. If you have a musical intelligence, that means you have that capability to understand music. So maybe making a career in that domain works well. So people who take up management as a domain, most of you are management aspirants. It would be good if you join an event management company after completing your management program. Or maybe you may be good with something that has an element of music to it. Similarly, people with logical or mathematical intelligence can be wonderful analysts, they can be consultants, they can be advisors, they can be portfolio managers, they can be investment bankers. People who are good with linguistic intelligence can become like content writers. You can be good with the digital marketing. You may be good with a lot of things where you need, to express more, advertising or maybe PR. If your interpersonal relations intelligence is high, you may be great in the field of marketing, sales, PR, liaison, and a lot of other things. So assess yourself, see where are your different levels of intelligences, identify the intelligences where you can say that you have an edge, work on them. I would rather say capitalize on them, build on them, and try to see how they can contribute to your career. Now, I've always been saying that management is a very generous domain. You come from any of the streams, you are welcome to management. And post completing your program in management, you can enter into any of those sectors. So identify your intelligences and see the sectors where you can fit well. I remember many of my students trying these different tests on them, and we are able to guide them. You may be good for banking and financial services. You may be great in retail industry, or you may be able to do good as a consultant or as an analyst, or somebody might be great to take up roles like business development or maybe PR. So try and assess your multiple intelligences. You can find a lot of content online and see where do you stand and what are the intelligences you can kind of build your careers on. Okay? So I hope this sounds interesting. Quickly, a yes or no. And how many of you I can expect that would perhaps try and spend some time exploring this towards the evening or maybe over the weekend? See, you need to respond to me. I need to be assured that we are connected. So moving further, multiple intelligences is one concept. Another interesting tool is RISAC. And a lot of institutions these days try this on their students in the early stages itself. Like we at IBS make it a point that right in the beginning of our program, we subject our students to a lot of self-assessment so that we can have a very clear dossier, what they are capable of or what are the fields they can do well in. So don't get carried away with this figure. I'll just try to make it simple for you. I'm sure this is a very highly acclaimed tool across the globe. It is implemented widely. Many of you must have tried it. If not, you may do it now. Holland suggested this. This is often known as RISAC assessment. They also call it as personality career fit assessment. Now, what do we do here? When you assess yourself using this tool, you'll find a lot of online tests for this as well. When you assess towards the end, it gives you a RISAC code. That would be a 3 or 4 lettered code that gives a picture of how you are as a person. And we have people with different personality types. So people maybe, this RISAC is an acronym for all these 6 terms: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. To put it very briefly, although it is a very elaborate concept, but if I quickly touch upon it, realistic are the people who would like to work with some objects. They would like to work with some physical objects. It may be like doctors working on their tools or instruments or surgical equipments, or maybe engineers working with specific type of machines. So in management, we often see that people who would like to work in manufacturing industries or people who would like to work with specific type of machines, like working on projects, infra and similar industries, and even computers. So maybe people who wish to get into the process of maybe data or business intelligence and would like to work on a lot of models on computers or systems. So realistic people seek to work on some specific objects. Investigative people, okay, Utkarsh Yadav likes investigative and social. So I think you've tried it on yourself and this is what comes out as your Isaac. Utkarsh, I would recommend, please try to pick the third dimension also, because generally it is a three-lettered code, often four as well. But if you explore the third aspect also, it would be good. I mean, maybe a more elaborate analysis. So investigative people are good to work with facts, information, data. So good to be consultants, good to be advisors, good to be analysts. And these roles, management profoundly, trains people for these roles. So business analytics, business intelligence, all these are emerging domains and high on the wish list of industry. So if you find that you are investigative, explore on these ideas, try to make a career as a financial analyst or an investment advisor or maybe a corporate consultant, something like that. Artistic people would have a higher degree of imagination, maybe a lot of innovation and creativity drives them. They can be good in advertising, they can be great in something like, okay, Kritika writes enterprising, social, and artistic. That's interesting, Kritika. Maybe, you're good to, sorry, capitalize on your artistic abilities and your enterprising persona and create an impact. Maybe in near future, we can look at you as an entrepreneur, coming up with your own innovative ideas and making a mark. So artistic people are good to work in industries like event management or advertising or content development, where you have your own thoughts and originality. Social people would like to see that their endeavors are a lasting contribution. It may be in the form of counselors, advisors, it may be working on projects that are related to development and improving the quality of life for society. You may even be good teachers, I mean, management academicians. You may be great as trainers. You may be great as counselors. You may be great as life coaches and a lot of other roles. And then enterprising people are great to take up those endeavors where they create, their influence, the impact. So maybe entrepreneurs, maybe marketing, sales, public speaking, motivational speakers, trainers. They're very enterprising inherently. And conventional people can look at roles which are very systematically defined roles, with very clear set of work-related protocols. Maybe, the timelines are fixed, the roles and responsibilities are fixed. So try and assess yourself on RISAC. You would find this questionnaire online. Identify your RISAC code and see what kind of personality you have. And what are the, domains or industries where you'll fit. I always say, I mean, it is never too late. Tomorrow, if you get to understand that, ma'am, I'm realistic, investigative, and enterprising, so I could have made a career in sciences, great. You need techno managers, you need managers in sciences and engineering firms. So you are going to be the ones who are going to very significantly contribute to these domains. So assess yourself on these things and try to, see that you get into the industry where you fit well. Okay? Where you fit well means there is a fitment of an individual's abilities, personality, and what an individual is contributing or delivering. Okay? That gives a sense of accomplishment. So I'm not very sure how many of you have explored this. I could get two responses where you have kind of assessed your RISAC code. I would insist all must do it. And this is the right time to do it, honestly. So are we good to move further? I just wanted to try a brief self-assessment exercise with you. So are we all set? Can we, I hope everybody has a pen and paper. Okay. So I would request just write 1 to 29. There are 29 statements where I would wish that you assess your own, behaviors, your orientations, and your personality. So very quickly take a piece of paper, just write 1 to 29. You don't need to make a note of the statements. Just write the numbers and I'll help you understand what are we trying to do. Okay. So I'm going to share a document with you. I hope this is legible, the font size and all, the view. If you could please confirm. Any one of you, like, I've projected a Word document that starts with rate yourself on the following skills. Thank you, Kritika. So what are we supposed to do? I'm bringing some 29 statements before you. And the scoring is like 1 is when you assess that you are not good with this. Okay, so it is a kind of low score. And incrementally, when you move towards 5, it is that you are extremely good with this. So 1 corresponds that yes, you are not good with this, absolutely not good. 2 would be like okay at certain instances. 3 is like off and on, sometimes you're good with it. 4 corresponds to like most of the times you're good with this, and 5 means like you are absolutely fine with this. So I hope the scoring is clear. Uh, the key to get a very fair assessment is 1, respond honestly, not ideally. So ideally ऐसा होना चाहिए is one approach, and what am I is the honest approach. So take an honest approach. Respond honestly. We are not even going to ask your score. Keep it to yourself. It is for your own assessment. And also ensure that you get the statements right. Okay, so very quickly, I'm taking you through these 29 statements. You just need to write your score against each question number or maybe statement number. And then towards the end, we'll go for an assessment. So I'll quickly read the statements for you. At any point of time, if you feel that you need some clarification, or maybe you're not able to understand what the question elicits or what does it expect you to respond on, please feel free to put in the chat box. So quickly, we'll just take 5 minutes to attempt these statements, and let's see how we score in this. So the first statement is introducing yourself. So you're expected to rate yourself, like, are you very good at introducing yourself? I mean, whenever you come across new people or you get to interact with people, are you able to introduce yourself effectively? Or is it like there is a struggle? So from 1 to 5, assuming 1 means that you struggle with this and 5 means that you're absolutely confident while introducing yourself. So please put an honest score. Quickly, if you can confirm that you've understood what we are trying to do, just a yes or no, so that I
Yes.
can be sure. Yeah, thanks. So the first statement is introducing yourself. Second is listening, taking in what people say. So are you able to understand what people say? Contrarily, statement 3 says listening. That is, are you able to show adequate interest in people? When you interact with people, are you able to make them, are you able to extend that affirmation that you're interested in this conversation? Statement 4 says, are you good at communicating feelings, your thoughts, your feelings on a scale of 1 to 5? Statement 5 says, how good are you in dealing with anger or hostility? So I hope this is clear. Like when there are situations where you may find that, yes, there is a level of annoyance or anger. How do you, I mean, are you effectively dealing with it? Statement 6 says responding to praise. I was asked once, like, how is it a difficult situation? We find people who get awkward when they are showered with compliments or praises. You don't really understand how do I respond to it. So are you like kind of very modest and very nicely you accept it and gracefully you are able to handle it, or you get a little overwhelmed? So statement 6 is how do you respond to praise? Statement 7 is responding to an expression of anxiety. So when you experience nervousness, anxiety, or maybe that apprehension, skepticism, consternation, how effectively do you handle it? If you think you are not good at handling it, you may rate yourself as low as 1 or 2. If you feel that you are quite good with it, you may rate yourself as 4 or 5 as well. Statement 8 says responding to a negative feedback. When somebody comes to you with feedback that may not sound very favorable or maybe very pleasant, how do you handle it or how do you respond to it? Statement 9 says coping with apathy and expression of disinterest. You are among a crowd or maybe amidst a group, you find that you are not paid much attention to, or maybe your existence is not valued much. So with this expression of disinterest, how do you handle yourself? I have seen people of your age group often getting very disturbed with this, and some of them are like, I don't care attitude. So how good are you with coping with this? Are you able to create a space for yourself? I mean, do you take a back foot, or are you still confident that I can create that element where people focus on me as well? Statement 10 is coping with silences in conversations. Now, this is pretty common, no? When you are into conversations, maybe with the group or maybe one-on-one, there is an awkward silence often. So how do you handle it? No, are you able to break the silence? Are you able to channelize the communication again? So I quickly wish to confirm our statement 1 to 10 clear to all so that we can move to the next 10.
Yes.
Any confusion?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions you need clarity on, or you want me to elaborate? Okay, so that's good. Statement 11 says appreciating other people's feeling. So are you able to understand, absorb, take a note of, or maybe kind of comprehend other people's feeling and appreciating it? Further, giving information. Now, this is again, when I talk about your effectiveness in personal and professional settings, how good are you with exchanging information? Filtering what is to be shared, to what extent, at what time, through which channel, in what language. That is again an art. Statement 13 says advising on emotional issues. Are you good to kind of counsel people when they are having their own emotional struggles? So are you somebody who people look up to seek some sort of solace, or maybe understanding or a piece of advice? How good are you with seeking clarification? This often we fail to do. No, we hesitate seeking clarification, assuming that perhaps we are subjecting ourselves to some fiasco or maybe some embarrassment. 15 is how good are you in asking open-ended questions? So are you able to put the other party to a comfort level that they are able to open up? So are you able to create that kind of conversation where your questions let the other party open up? Okay. Statement 16 says waiting for replies. There is a different level of anxiety, but how do you handle it while waiting for replies? Statement 17 says changing direction of conversation. So if needed, or maybe if you feel that this is the time where the conversation is perhaps moving in the direction you would not like it to continue in, or maybe that is the need of the group that the direction needs to be changed, are you good in doing so? Statement 18 says expressing support. So are you able to express your solidarity or support towards someone or some purpose? So how strongly do you project your support? This 19th statement, I find it very fascinating. And most of us struggle here. Self-disclosure as appropriate. Many of the people in your age group often regret, like, kind of I get carried away and I express a lot more about myself. Maybe a lot of my feelings and emotions I end up opening up before the other person. Shouldn't have done that. Should have exercised some restraint. And often some people say I'm not able to adequately express myself. So are you good to adequately, or not just to the appropriate extent, disclosure, self-disclosure, sharing about your interests, aspirations, fears, anxieties, likes, dislikes, preferences, choices, just as required? Statement 20 says making a conversation more serious. So are you good in making a conversation more focused, more concentrated, more serious? So if statement 11 to 20 are good, can we move to the last set of statements? If somebody
Yes.
could just confirm.
Can you repeat 15 and 16?
Okay, sure. So 15 says asking open-ended questions. See, normally when we are in conversation, it is pretty easy when it is just like yes, no, maybe. But there are certain occasions where you feel that an individual's proficiency lies in the fact that how good are you to ask questions where the other person would open up. Like suppose two of us are interacting, and rather than asking you like, are you aspiring for management or a career as a manager, I would perhaps ask you, how do you look at your life and career? Maybe in the near future, any significant plans, or maybe you've just kept it open. So here you have a scope to explain and talk about yourself. So I have kind of put a probing question, where a leading question, where I've given you scope to talk about. So open-ended questions is जब आप बात करते हैं और where you're in conversation, do you give enough scope to the other person because your questions are such that the other person feels like opening up or explaining? Is that good? I mean, I hope I've been able to answer.
Yes, ma'am.
And 16 is waiting for replies. Often what happens is like you would put a lot of communication to the other party, soliciting some response or a feedback or maybe a favor or a consent, or maybe in a general conversation. So when you feel that the other person is taking time in responding, or maybe people need to think, so how good are you in waiting for replies? Do you develop too much of anxiety, or there is a level of impatience, or at times you are too pestering with things? Or is it like you are able to wait for replies and kind of this phase where you are waiting for reply, you can handle it maturely? Okay. So I'm now moving to the last set of statements, 21 to 29. So statement 21 says, making a conversation less serious. If you feel that the conversation is getting too serious, do you have that ability, that kind of dynamism in your own style of communication that you can make it a little less serious? 22 is summarizing what people have said. Now, this is a wonderful way of assessing how good are we with communication, particularly listening and understanding. If people say something, are you good to kind of decipher what they are trying to say? Are you good to rephrase or paraphrase it, or kind of draw a crux or gist out of it? So somebody might have been talking to you, or maybe a group has been into discussion. Are you good to draw the conclusion or the summary or the core of it? Okay. Statement 23 says holding someone's interest and attention. Uh, are you capable or proficient in holding or sustaining the interest and attention of the other party while they are interacting with you? 24 is finishing conversations in a positive way. So generally, are you able to close conversations in a favorable, fashion? 25 is how good are you with your organizing skills? Now, organizing includes a lot of things. No, organizing people, organizing resources, coordinating, or maybe even systematically managing oneself. At times, organizing skills is how methodical, how systematic, how sorted you are. Statement 26 is how good are you with time management? Prioritizing the task, scheduling the task, keeping up the timelines, and not missing your targets in terms of those time frames or deadlines, or utilizing your time in a more productive way. 27 is liaising with others, developing network, developing connections, rapport building, creating those value-based networks where you have a positive mutual exchange. What you have to offer to people, what you expect from people. There is a favorable exchange of ideas, thoughts, perspectives, experiences, benefits. So are you good with the, creating that good network and capitalizing on the same? 28 is resolving conflicts, how good you are with addressing and resolving conflicts when there are disagreements. And 29 is how good are you with finishing task. When I say finishing, I would perhaps replace it with the word completing it the way it should be. So finishing may be abruptly finishing. I'm talking about finishing in a smooth way. So accomplishing, I would rather call it accomplishing tasks. So are the 29 statements clear to all? Have you been able to score, rate yourself on each of these statements?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please repeat 27th statement?
27 is like liaison is when you are able to create a network where based on this network, you can have exchange. It may be exchange of ideas, perspectives, benefits, favors, opportunities. I'm not saying that you are trying to, cater to your interest. It is just that are you able to develop that kind of network or interpersonal relations where both the parties can be of value to each other? I hope I've been able to respond.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So I'm closing this. It was just a small self-assessment. I just tried this because we do it with our students, not this one. A lot and lot of self-assessments. In fact, the first 2 semesters, we spend a lot of time helping our students with self-assessment to see if they can understand themselves well and where do we need to work on them. I've seen students struggling with something like appropriate self-disclosure. There are students who tell me that we often regret after a conversation, or maybe we've talked a little too much about ourselves. So different ways of like assessing how good are you to present yourself in social settings. It may be in personal or maybe professional social settings. So quickly, see, had everything been like that utopia kind of situation, wonderful, sab aapke saath perfect hai, which is like way impossible, the score would have been something around. What would have been the score? Quickly. Had everything been ideal, 29 statements and the highest score being 5, what would be the score? 145?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And suppose things are really bad, I mean, the life and things are not so great with you at this moment, what would be the lowest score?
29.
So in this range of 29 to 145, you can assess where do you stand. And anything above 100 is a good score. And you can aspire to enhance, evolve, develop more. Anything less than 80 is something we need to seriously think on. Okay? Anyway, I'm not pronouncing that the score corresponds to this level of interpersonal effectiveness or maybe your individual efficiency. I'm just trying to say that these are certain statements that are an indicator of how well are you able to manage, conduct, and sustain yourself in professional and personal environments while dealing with maybe friends, clients, colleagues, seniors, subordinates, or business associates, or maybe your extended family, your relatives, your people around. So this would give you a kind of assessment or estimation, help you ascertain that there are areas where perhaps there is a lot of homework needed. Okay, so moving further, now this is most of the people from your generation have read this book, and I'm pretty sure if not, you should. The reason why I have brought it here is not introducing you to this concept, but since I was talking about personal and professional effectiveness, I would wish that one, take an assessment of your intelligences. Second, analyze your personality to see what kind of careers and domains you are good for. And then third, there has to be a very thoughtful assessment based on this concept, Ikigai. I hope many of you know about it. It just tries to help people strike a balance between different dimensions, among different dimensions that are essentials or imperatives of life. And when you choose careers or when you choose your endeavors, there has to be an optimal balance in all these areas. Some of the most loosely used words, I'm sorry for that, but passion is perhaps the most loosely used word, I feel. The moment you feel that something is interesting or something is drawing your attention or interest, you immediately pronounce it as your passion. Passion is not something that is to be so conveniently, you cannot that conveniently pronounce that this is my passion. Go for a deep self-assessment and introspection and see what is something that you really love to do. Something where you find that there is an element of ecstasy, delight, happiness, gratification, fulfillment. May or may not be something that can be taken as a career aspiration, but yes, something that makes you happy. Also assess what are your abilities, competencies, proficiencies, your aptitude, what you're good at. So these are the things where you can perhaps deliver more significantly. Your outcomes are more meaningful and maybe productive. You also need to assess where are the areas where you have the ability and perhaps you can pursue a career. Because at the end of the day, it is ultimately about making a reasonably good life for yourself. So livelihood. So what you love doing may be passion. What you're good at needs to be opted as profession. But that must, help you earn. So that must be a route to make money. And at the same time, when you try to look at the outcome or maybe what have you contributed. So, I mean, I being a teacher often feel that, yes, I've chosen a profession where I'm making a significant contribution. Even if I'd been an investment banker, maybe I would have helped people in managing their wealth or maximizing their wealth, making life better for them. So just see whatever you are pursuing, is it something that is helping in making life better for people around you in any context, socio-economic context, or maybe personal context, or health related context, or maybe even financials, whatever you suggest. So there has to be a balance between your passion, your profession, your vocation, and the mission. I mean, something that makes a contribution to the larger society. So try that when you pick up careers, when you look at your outcomes, there is a balance. The reason why I'm so strongly insisting on this, because maybe initial few years, fat paychecks would be, they are lucrative and they really lure. They sound very interesting. But as you keep growing in your life, you evolve, you become more profound, you become more independent, you become more mature, you seek meaning, you seek contentment. And then perhaps there is the time where you see that you need to balance these things in your life. So develop that kind of wisdom and that kind of prudence right in the beginning, where you see that your career is something that has an adequate balance. Now, these were some interesting existing, I would not call them models, but I would say that these are certain pronouncements that help us see how we choose career and different endeavors. Moving further, this was something I have come across in the recent times, discussing with a lot of people in industry and corporate, a lot of psychologists, a lot of experts, out of this my role demands me doing. So I mean, particularly looking at IBS has a very strong corporate interface, so we've been interacting a lot with the industry, taking their feedback as to what is high on their wish list. We interact a lot with our alumni, 58,000 plus alumni, so we seek their inputs, their experiences with life, their experiences with work and workplaces. A lot we interact with senior academicians in the domain. We talk a lot to other people, particularly these life coaches, industrial psychologists, and we draw conclusions from all these things. So there is a kind of blend where we are living. There is a world like, emotional world. See, in your personal and professional environment, you are dealing with people, soft, self, others, thoughts and feelings. So you are living in a world where you're expected to, on daily basis, you're interacting with people, you're coordinating with people. I always say, I mean, even if you talk about stress, it is not about work, it is about people around you. If you talk about outcomes, it is not always individual, it is people coming together. If you talk about outcomes like functional outcomes, business outcomes, market outcomes, it is all about a group of people. So something that is an emotional world that talks about how you deal with individuals, groups in social settings, that calls for an emotional intelligence. I've written EQ as emotional quotient. There is another dimension that deals with the rational world, IQ. Cognitive and mental abilities, your general awareness, your intelligence level, your technical expertise, how good you are with the functions, task, role, work, and maybe, I mean, when you start with your program in management, it is about your semester performances and all. So IQ talks about your effectiveness or your efficiency to deliver on tasks and cognitive and academic abilities. And then there is something like a political quotient. We cannot be in denial. Okay? Even if we are working at the best of places, we are working with people. There would be a clash of interest. There would be common, aspirations. I always say, if you look at life in college or school, it is like a rectangle or a cylinder. Everybody gets promoted from class 5 to class 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, right? Even when you're in your graduation, everybody gets promoted from semester 1 to 2, 2 to 3, unless you fare terribly or miserably bad in exams. But when you get into the life after college, it is not a cylinder or a rectangle. Not everybody grows to the next level. It becomes a pyramid that tapers towards the top. Not everybody would get promoted. Not everybody would get a high appraisal. Not everybody would be taken to, those higher levels in the career ladder. So as you keep moving up, the number of people making it to that top level is coming down. That implies that there is a lot of clash of interest. I may be looking for a promotion, so would be you. I may be looking for an increment, so would be you. I'm looking for a client of my choice, so would be you. I'm eyeing a location of my choice, so would be you. I want recognition, you want the same. I want a position in the organization, you also want the same. So all those benefits, advantages, and those incentives, everybody wants. So automatically there is a political world around us. Maybe it is not a part of our formal job role, but each one of us would be trying that those benefits or advantages, kind of they come towards me. So there is a political quotient. It is around the control, power in the organizations, in the society, in the family, in our own structure. And then there are changes. Changes may be because of technology, restructuring. Changes may be because of socio-cultural changes. Changes may be because of, we are experiencing it in our society, in our workplaces. How do you handle these things? That political intelligence. I'm not saying that we are training you to become active politicking agents in organizations, but we make a lot of effort in training our students to survive the politics. You're able to navigate, you're able to steer through this environment that puts the stress and challenge. So when you have a balance of these three things, that makes you're able to effectively handle yourself in personal settings and at work. And there is something I wish to spend some 5 minutes on. Uh, this is managing your cues. Uh, these cues, you would find a lot of these things on web. You'll find a lot in business literature also. You'll hear a lot of experts talking about it, and there are multiple of them. So we've just tried to draw a brief list which would help you develop as effective professionals. So very quickly, most of them, all of you are aware of. I'm just looking for some quick answers in the chat box. IQ is intelligence quotient. We all know that. How many of you have actually tried testing your IQ? Quickly, a yes or no. Have you ever made a conscious effort to test your IQ? I'm waiting to see some yes. Okay. Fortunately or unfortunately, the initial responses that I get is no. So maybe this is the time where we need to check it, because intelligence quotient, or your mental abilities and your academic abilities, your technical expertise, is the, I would say, the fundamental. So test yourself, test your IQ, see how good you are. And if you find that it comes out to be modest or average, spend some more time in reading, spend some more time in developing yourself, spend some more time in enhancing your mental abilities. And there are different ways of doing it, not just solving those brain teasers or mind games, but reading profoundly, interacting with people who are learned, well-read, wise, trying to follow those groups or engaging in those activities that enhance your intelligence and ability. And then there is something, emotional quotient, EQ, very widely talked about. And this is something that is perceived to be the, even more crucial than IQ. Industry and corporate experts say that your career and your ultimate success rests on your emotional quotient. How good are you in managing your own emotions, your thoughts, your outbursts, and how good are you in understanding or comprehending the emotions of people around you? That would determine your success. So you have a lot of tests to assess your EQ. Try, evaluating yourself on these tests. If you find that your EQ scores are not very encouraging, seek some support. Try to go through some literature that helps you, or some tips that help you develop your emotional intelligence. Make some profound efforts like, introspection, seeking feedback from people around you. These things help. Of late, industry has been very strongly focusing on something called MQ, which is moral quotient. We've come across a lot of turbulences in corporates. We've seen a lot of unpleasant instances happening. So moral quotient is not just being ethical. I'm not talking about that value education. Moral quotient is having that basic intelligence to take the right decisions. As I talked about in the beginning, developing the critical faculty. Critical faculty is like, I have the capability to distinguish what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, what is legal, what is illegal, what is ethical, what is unethical, what is viable, what is not viable, feasible, infeasible. So am I good to take those decisions in my profession and in my personal life, where I can draw a clear line of demarcation that, yes, I'm moving in the right direction? Companies look at this ability. There are a lot of situational interviews, a lot of behavioral event interviews, a lot of different techniques through which they assess that, do you have this right kind of moral quotient? Something which is very high on the wish list of industry these days is CQ, that is creativity quotient. Are you able to bring some innovative, creative solutions to the problems at work? And this comes into picture in your personal life also. The way you look at problems, the way you approach problems. I have no hesitation in accepting. Way back somewhere in 2008-9, I remember my boss giving a feedback. Madam, the moment I get to see you at 9:30 in the morning, I get anxious. I develop that anxiety. That was very hurting. I mean, nobody would be able to digest it or consume it. So I was like quite hurt. And then I thought I should perhaps go and seek an elaborate feedback. And he told me that you come up with so many problems and observations. We appreciate that you are so committed, so engrossed, and you have that kind of observation. You see where we have gaps and lacunas, and you always come up with those things. But the moment I get to see you, I feel that you'll be coming with 110 problems, and that is not something I would welcome in the first hour of the day. And I remember in 2016, my boss saying that I was on a leave for 2 days, and he said, "Madam, choti mat liya kijiye. The moment you take leave, no, we find things getting very difficult. Sab stuck up ho jata hai." And I was within my heart so delighted. Okay, a journey, and I took 7 years to reach the stage where I could earn this compliment that my absence at work makes that difference. Reason: earlier my approach was looking at problems as problems, and eventually my approach became as, fine, there is a problem, everybody knows it. I mean, there's no great achievement if I come up with a problem. Do I come up with solutions? What kind of solutions? Am I able to bring those viable solutions? And this is how I've developed over years. And I just thought I would share this personal experience. I don't hesitate. I mean, I said examples for myself. So creativity quotient is, how do you look at problems and how do you come up with those innovative solutions to problems? And they have a very clear way of assessing this ability. They'll put you to those kind of assessments and interviews where they can check you on this. And then there is something PQ that I've already discussed, a political quotient. Are you good to survive the politicking in the surroundings? SQ is, some of the experts call it as spiritual quotient. I'm going to talk about social quotient. Are you capable to develop those meaningful, value-based social relations in your surroundings? I'm not just talking about your personal life, but also in your professional settings. Then there is something like XQ, which corresponds to experience quotient. You may say we are freshers, we're just stepping into post-graduation, but experience may come through internships, experience may come through projects, experience may come through being active in a lot of co-scholastic endeavors. And that is wherein IPS, we encourage students to take up a lot of roles in student clubs. We have multiple clubs at all campuses. So we see how do we inculcate that experience in students. We put them to live projects, lots of internships. In our summer internship, that is almost like 3.5 months. So 14 weeks of extensive grilling to make them earn that experience of bridging, that gap. How does the real work world look like, and how do you assume it on this side? So develop experiences through internships, projects, learning assignments, and involving yourself in a lot of post-scholastic endeavors, taking up responsibilities, taking up challenges. There is another CQ which is on the wish list of industry, that is cultural quotient. Today, the world is like DIB or DIE, diversity, inclusion, equity. A diversity, inclusion, belonging. You may be expected to work in organizations where the parent company, the company is maybe British, having an office in India, and you have a Japanese colleague, right? Similarly, somebody from some far northeastern part of India comes and works with a South Indian for a North Indian company, maybe at Ahmedabad. So cultural quotient is, how good are you in understanding and appreciating cultural diversity? How good are you in acclimatizing, accustomizing, or adapting to these cultural diversities? Do you kind of bring value and kind of you're able to create value through these diverse cultural amalgamations? DQ is most important, that is digital quotient. We are living in the world where our ability with digital tools needs to be very high. So even if you say that that doesn't interest me, that is imperative, inevitable. I mean, to a certain extent, you need to be good with digital tools. AQ is what companies are specifically. I was surprised last year, despite all COVID crisis, we could meet our placement targets. We could see a rise in our average salaries, and I was surprised. And the reason why I could see companies coming to the campus, hiring students, one, our long-term relations with the corporates. And second, they said, "Madam, this is the right time to hire." If we are able to identify suitable people at this moment, means they are the ones who can navigate, who can steer, who can survive adversities. So A is adaptability or adversity quotient. See, technology is changing like anything. So is our socio-cultural environment. People who are agile, who have that growth-oriented mindset, who can cope with temporariness, who can keep upskilling, upgrading, and upscaling themselves. Industry needs people who can fight these adversities. So a high AQ is something that company looks for. And then there is PQ, which is a physical quotient. I mean, you may say, ma'am, you're not the right person to talk about it. But when I say physical quotient, I'm talking about an overall emotional, mental, and physical wellness. How balanced is the coordination between your mind and your body? Do you have the right kind of stamina and productivity? So there is a fitness that we expect from our workforce that is something you would be assessed on. Okay, I have a question in the chat box. Varun says, I'm applying for internship, but 2 companies rejected in the interview, telling me to work on your skills and gain experience. Varun, keep trying. I mean, after getting rejected 20 times, there would be a 21st attempt where you will find that this was the right place where you were destined to be. Trust me, they are looking for fresh talents because you bring in a lot of creativity and innovation. And also, there are organizations that love giving opportunities to budding talents. Don't give up on this, keep trying. And like at IBS, I keep, insisting my students keep taking up internships over and above our 3.5 months program. I think average, most of my students are engaged in some life project or internship, but that doesn't happen in one go. And I would suggest utilize your network, try exploring through LinkedIn, and prepare a nice video resume. I would recommend that would work for you, because what happens in a video resume, the recruiter or the assessor is able to see your personality, your confidence, your communication, and you are able to express yourself in a more effective way. So talk about your skills, talk about your achievements, talk about your interests, talk what you're aspiring for, what you have in your fold to offer to the client, and create this video resume, upload it on those professional networks, and see. I mean, I think you'll start getting opportunities. So these were those important quotients which I recommend that if you want to see that there is, yes, that there is something I can be delighted about in terms of my personal and professional effectiveness, you need to manage your different quotients. Any questions, friends? Anywhere you feel that no, you want to add something, you have something to share, or your own experiences, or you want me to clarify on something. But I would suggest that explore about these quotients. There are a lot of self-assessment tools. Try assessing yourself on different quotients. And very quickly, this is one area where I would say spend some time. Emotional intelligence is something I would suggest the most important thing when you look at a meaningful life, a meaningful career, meaningful interpersonal relations, accomplishment in your endeavors, and something like a favorable response from people around you. So this is a very interesting concept. Spend some time exploring this. You also have different platforms where you can test yourself for emotional intelligence, see how good you are with. There are 5 dimensions of emotional intelligence. Your self-awareness level, how well do you understand your own strengths and weaknesses? Your ability to regulate or manage or balance your own behaviors and thoughts. Your social skills or adeptness, how well do you reach out or develop a rapport or relationship with people? Your ability to keep yourself motivated and people in your surrounding, you act as a source of motivation for them as well. And empathy or compassion, which is most important. I mean, the recent times have perhaps taught us there's nothing more important than compassion and empathy. So explore about emotional intelligence. And what you can take as your homework or maybe your takeaway from this session is explore a lot of self-assessment tools, keep assessing yourself, see where do you stand, see how do you fare on those important dimensions. And also see that do you have those right kind of skills, knowledge, abilities. There are tools to assess, and you yourself are, you're the best judge to see how you're doing. Try to develop a network and capitalize on the same. I would recommend work a lot on your digital personality. How do you appear on digital platforms? The world today knows us more about our digital existence. I mean, tomorrow if somebody asks you, do you know Dr. Shweta Jain, you would perhaps say, because you've met her on a digital platform. Okay, so what kind of content do you post? What kind of groups do you follow? What activities you engage in? That is a reflection of the kind of person you are. So creating the right kind of digital personality is important. And based on your personal abilities, your career accomplishments, your digital personality, and your social network, you create a brand for yourself. So work on that personal branding. Okay. So that's all from my side. I know it is very difficult to hear someone that patiently, but I just thought that I could bring in and collate certain things. So thank you all. And we are now open for question and answers. Anything related to your career, to IBS, to management, we would be delighted to help you.
Ma'am, it was actually a very, very nice, wonderful, and it was amazing to have you over here. And as you explained about RISAC and all the tools to, just judge yourself and, giving marks. So this was wonderful. If in case you can please share this PPT with sir, and sir can mail us to.
Sure, no problem. I mean, ultimately, the objective is to help the students.
Exactly.
And I know it might be like I sounded too much emphasizing on self-assessment, but I trust this is the best way. I mean, the first step is self-assessment. Second is seeking feedback.
Exactly.
These two things would help. I think, ma'am, you need to unmute yourself.
You can WhatsApp me if you need PPT. You can also call me on this number. You can also drop an email over here. Yes, students, do you want to ask anything? Do you have anyone, any query?
It's delightful to see that people have such, refined levels of clarity. Thank you, Kritika. Thank you, Sarah.
It was amazing, ma'am, the way you explained each step. And I was also calculating and giving marks. And I was also smiling at the back and calculating again. It was
Dimple,
wonderful.
how much did you got?
More than 80. Definitely more than 80. All right, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
yes, students, IBS is open for admissions. And through, if you want to get into IBS, you need to apply for it. Through NMAT also you can go, but it is very compulsory to fill IBSAT form as well, because this is the form for application too. So many students are confused that they have to apply for NMAT or IBS separately or not. So this is just to clarify that this is important and mandatory to apply for IBSAT if you want to get into IBS.
Best wishes, all of you. Make a wonderful life and a wonderful career. And if you want to make us a partner in scripting your success journey, come to IBS. We would ensure that we give you the right platform to create that true kind of personal and professional success for you.
Thank you, Shweta ma'am, for such a wonderful session, ma'am. Thank you for your time also.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to interact with these young aspirants.
Ma'am, it's our pleasure, ma'am. It's our pleasure, ma'am.
Ma'am,
I think, sir, there's a question for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
there is a question. What is the expected cutoff at IBS Hyderabad this year?
Varun, this cutoff depends upon that when you will be giving your IBSAT exam. That is a clearing test. If you will be clearing your IBSAT, then you have to give your GD and PI. And after the GD and PI score, our cutoffs come. So you will be getting to know that in the month of March. Last year it was 90%. So this year we are also expecting the same.
All right. Okay. I hope it is clear, Varun. I think, yes, that's it. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Shweta
Thank you.
ma'am. It
Thank you,
was
Dimpy.
actually a pleasure to have you over here, ma'am.
Same
Looking
here.
forward to meet you again.
Thank
you, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Bye, sir.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.